Hey there, family. Happy New Year. It seems like the last time that we have shared content with you was during the November, December timeframe, and now we're back. I received some feedback from all of you, so just let me share as before we get into our main focus of today is that normally what drives the content we share, what drives the information we share, is the feedback that I hear from you, the emails that I've gotten from you, different comments I've gotten from different tribe members, or questions that I receive just ad hoc through Instagram or even Facebook. And so those questions actually make for great content. So if you have any questions about your collector journey, what are some of the questions you have if you're getting into collecting, please feel free to reach out to me, and you never know what your question may be content for the next YouTube clip. So listen, we're going to start out today with talking about, I refer to it as condition reports, but there's actually a lot that goes into this, and so I'm going to probably hit on a lot of different topics that will answer some of the questions I didn't even receive. So the last two sessions we had with you were about auctioning, and since that time, a number of tribe members have actually gone into auctions. There have been a number of auctions out there featuring African American art, and you've actually been able to acquire work. And so one of the things that came up from that, I got a call a few months ago about the condition of a print. And so I want to talk to you about that very briefly. Won't be long, hopefully, but just to hit some main points of focus that I think you should be aware, in your acquiring art. And so in this point, when we're talking about primarily acquiring prints, we're talking about specifically prints in the secondary market. What do I mean by secondary market? As we've stated before, it can mean acquiring through auctions. It could mean acquiring through estate sales. It could be acquiring work through other collectors. That is the secondary market. Or it could be acquiring it from a gallery where a collector or a family member of a collector is offloading, if you will, artwork. So that is the secondary market, okay? In some instances, in many instances, as I've shared in previous sessions with you, that sometimes when you acquire prints, they're already framed. And so some of us may be thinking, great, I don't have to pay for framing, but you don't really get a good sense of the condition of the print itself. And so even when when people are selling work, and you ask for information about the condition of the work, in the frame, in the glass, it looks like a pretty strong piece in good condition. Some might say very good or excellent condition, but you really don't know until you break open that frame and you look at what's there. And so one of my collector friends, one of my tribe members, shared with me a situation where they had acquired a work, and when they got the work, there was some damage to it. And it reminded me of a similar situation where I'd acquired a work that in the actual work, in the framing, it looked like it was in great condition. But as my framer started to take the work out of the frame, we noticed that there was some damage. And we're going to talk about two specific phrases or terms that you need to be aware of. So when you're asking for a condition report and you see something that says some abrasion or some art acid burn, then you know that in some instances that kind of tells you that your piece may not be in the best shape, and it may need some work, may need some mitigation, if you will, of the damage. Okay, so this is one reason I wanted to talk to you. It was, interestingly enough, before I go deeper into abrasion and deeper into acid burn, interestingly enough, I just acquired a piece, I want to say last month, by Romare Bearden. It was a goal of mine to get a new Romare Bearden work. And some of you may know that I have an affinity for creating goal statements for myself as a collector, have even started to create my goals for 2024. My goals from the early 2000s was to acquire the full set of the Odyssey suite. And so I've been vigorously working towards researching and finding out where those works are. So in December, January, was able to acquire my 5th Odyssey Suite piece. Already in the frame, looked like it was in good condition, and really looked like I didn't even need to reframe it from the out, just looking at the frame and the glass. But I had all of the other works in a different kind of framing, and I wanted to be consistent. So I went to my framer, and I was a little concerned. Folks, that I may have some damage there that I could not see while it was in the frame. And so this past few days ago, this weekend actually, went to my framer and said, hey, I need you to reframe this for me. He said, okay. And so we sat there before he started getting the measures for the frame and the matting and all of that. And I said, can you take it apart so I know what I'm dealing with? Now, mind you, I'd already purchased the piece. But it said in the condition report in the auction that the piece was in good condition. So my framer, Derek Thompson, overdue recognition in Bowie, Maryland, shout out to him and Jackie. He opened it up, and the wonderful thing was that it was in excellent condition, right? There was no acid damage. There was no adhesive stuck to any piece. It was not dry mounted. It was loosely mounted to the matting board. And so I was just so excited that in that particular piece, even though I requested the condition report, they sent me something in writing, and I called the auction house because I wanted to make sure as best as I could that there was no damage to the piece. But everything I got back from them said, it looks like it's in pretty good condition in the frame. Okay, so a lot of times you're really not, it looks good in the frame, folks, but you're not going to be able to tell until you open it up. In one case, I, like another friend of mine, opened a piece of work up and we noticed that there was some damage. In this case, you're going to need a conservation specialist to help you mitigate as much of that damage as possible. And I want to say that from the jump. There are some framers that can use, that have some approaches and techniques and solutions they can use for mitigating some of the damage, but it may not necessarily get it back to pristine condition, maybe good condition or solid condition. So I did want to share that with you. Now, mind you, as I'm talking about this, you're hearing me talking about auctioning, and I'm not talking about auctioning as it to be the subject matter of this particular coachable moment. I'm talking about it because it's a part of one of those avenues, that secondary market in which you can acquire art. Right? So please don't say, oh no, Sheila, she's going back to the auction thing. No, we're not. The purpose of this clip is to talk about the certain terminology and techniques to be aware of when you're asking for the condition of a work, especially on the secondary market, before you acquire it. And let me just put this disclaimer out there. There are some estate sale companies, there are some auction houses that you need to be very leery of, folks. If they're not willing to fully disclose the condition of a work, be very aware. Buyers beware. You're taking, it's your hard-earned ducats, it's your hard-earned money, and you're taking that at risk to get something where you're taking a gamble, basically. You're not fully aware of what you're getting before you get it, right? It's just like buying a car, and the engine's jacked up, but you paid a whole lot of money for it, and then you got to pay. It's the same kind of thing, right? And so I want you to kind of be aware of that. There are some auction houses, there are some estate sales organizations that will just not share with you the condition of a work. So in this case, we got that, but the condition report said in the frame, which is really their disclaimer, because you don't really know the condition of a print or the condition of a work until you take the glass off, take the hinges from the back, take the paper off, take the frame off, before you can see what you really have. So I want to share with you a short story, in which I was working with an auction house. They said it was in decent condition, but it was in the frame. Right? When I got the piece home, this was some years ago, I was able, we took the framing, we took everything apart, and we could see where there was some brown lines outside of the image, below the signature and below the name of the work, but it was obvious, noticeably obvious at the bottom and kind of slight on the sides. So when I looked that up and I said, okay, what in the world of this is this? It is actually what is called acid burn. It is a term referred to as acid burn. And what acid burn is, and you will see this a lot with older pieces, with pieces that were done in the 70s, that were printed in the 70s, in the 60s, in the 50s, and even to some extent to the 80s and 90s, depending on how it was stored and how it was kept, right? The other thing is depending on how it was framed. And so I go back to this, one of my earlier teachable moments, Keston, in 2019, we talked about framing. That was one of the more classic, right, clips. So everybody go back to that framing clip where we're talking about how you need to be careful who frames your work that is an investment. Right? Remember, you will hear me say repeatedly, art is an asset class. It's just like jewels. It's just like stocks. It's just like bonds. It is an asset class. And when you're acquiring art, yes, you acquire it because you buy it because it's aesthetically pleasing to the eye, but you're also buying it, you're acquiring it because it is also valued work. So, we actually, when we opened it up, there was some there was lines on the side, lines on the bottom, and they were like a yellowish line and a light brownish line. And so I was working with Derek before. This is when I didn't have a conservation specialist. I was working with Derek, and he said, hey, I think I can correct or mitigate some of this, right? And so he did. There was some type of solution that is used to help mitigate the damage of acid burns. But here's the thing about acid burns, folks. Acid burns, acid burns come along when your framer is using matting that is acidic. It has some acidic properties in it. When folks store their artwork against cardboard is acidic. So you want to watch how you store artwork, and then you want to watch how you frame artwork. You don't want to mix this. I remember seeing at one point a framer framing artwork by using masking tape. Who does that? And masking tape is full of acid. And what does acid do? Over time, it breaks down or decomposes the paper, right? Or the paper or the printing paper or printing board by which the print is on, the print itself. Right? So after a while, the longer it sits in against acidic properties, the more it breaks down or decomposes the piece. And when it breaks down and decomposes the piece, you're just basically throwing your investment away. All right. And so that's one thing, is the acid burn. So you have to make sure when you're getting your work framed, first of all, get the condition report. Secondly, when you're getting your work framed, make sure you insist upon your material being acid-free. The matting is acid-free, the boarding, the hinging, everything is acid-free. Let me put it to you this way. Having acid properties next to your artwork devalues the asset of the artwork. Okay, so if I keep messing, that's what you need to know, right? So that's one thing. It is the whole thing that makes sure. Now, I said something before about Michaels and Hobby Lobby. It's not that I'm crashing on Michaels or Hobby Lobby. They have asset-free information. They have asset-free materials as well, and they have people that are very good at framing. I'm saying make sure you remember that the work you acquire is an asset. All right. So now let me just share this with you. So some people say, Sheila, I don't have the money. So I don't have the money right away to get it framed. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't have as much wall space. What do I do? How do I preserve it? You want to make sure that whatever you do to preserve your artwork, that it's in a dry, climate-controlled environment, and that it is not exposed to light, and that it is not exposed to any acidic properties. In other words, don't keep it cardboard. A piece of cardboard behind it to keep it flat. You want to make sure that you have, if you can get sleeves in which you can slide your work in, where the properties of the sleeve in and of itself doesn't have any acid in it, right? So I remember when I ran out of sleeves, my gallery friends gave me some sleeves, and when I ran out of the sleeves, I actually went online, went to Blick's, which is an art supply store, and ordered sleeves, a whole bunch of sleeves, and actually put a whole slew of the unframed pieces that I had into those sleeves to protect them. Okay, so I want you to think about making sure that you don't put your print work next to or in anything that has acid in it, right? So I went from A to Z talking about acquiring the work, but we're also talking about preserving the work. So when we're talking about that, I wanted to also share with you one other thing that you might see when you're buying prints secondhand, right, on the secondary market, and that is a term called abrasions. You may see some ink loss. You may see some scratching. You may see different imperfections in the side, outside of the image and in the image of the work based upon what rubbed against it. Right? And so that's one reason why I said get the sleeves, because the sleeves protect the work. I have a flat file cabinet because I don't want to be bound with not acquiring a work that speaks to me because I don't have wall space. So I have a flat file cabinet. I have different places in my home where I protect the work and I store the work so that at some point I frame it and I put it up in a space where I know it will sing to me. Hey, I hope this has helped you out in some way. If you have any questions for me, you can reach out to me on YouTube in the comment section of this thread, or you can reach out to me on Instagram, threads.net, Facebook. There are a number of ways, and my website. There are a number of ways and you can reach me. And again, thank you for your feedback because that creates content for this channel. Have a great one, folks.